The Football Manager series began life under its current name with the release of Football Manager 2005. However, the series actually began in 1992 when developers Sports Interactive released Championship Manager. The series became wildly popular. I remember plumping so many hours into each yearly edition, before a dispute with publishers Eidos saw Sports Interactive lose the rights to the series name but take the match engine to new publishers Sega, hence the name change. The Touch series streamlines things for handheld devices, and the 2022 edition has just released on the Nintendo Switch. Fancy trying your hand at football management? What's the worst that can happen? It's not as if you're going to get sacked after 10 games. Well, then again. Can you kick it? Well, I'm Glen Bolger, thank you to Sega for the review code, and now, let's find out. So for the uninitiated, the Football Manager series is a management simulation game where you take on the role of a football manager as you attempt to take your chosen team to glory. You must choose a tactic, buy and sell players, and make the tough decisions in order to make that happen. Fail to get the results though, and you could quite easily find yourself unemployed. So in terms of the word touch in the title, well, it hints at the fact that this particular series is made specifically for handheld devices and is a more streamlined experience compared to its PC sibling. That's not to say it's watered down though, it still includes an extensive player database from 123 leagues set across 53 nations. You'll still be able to be as involved as you want in creating tactics, including giving personal instructions, directing your scouts towards certain regions, or having them look for a particular type of player, and setting up individual or team training sessions. Each of these areas is explained to you via an induction the first time you encounter them, although you can skip these if you wish, and any parts that you do not want to be responsible for can be delegated to your assistant manager, freeing you up to focus on the parts that do interest you. When it's time to play a match, the user interface is pretty similar to last year's Touch version, allowing you to make quick substitutions, act upon advice from your assistant manager, shout instructions to your team, or make tactical tweaks on the fly. This helps matches to flow, although you can go into the tactics screen by pressing plus if you want to slow things down and think your next move through. As well as the career mode, which is where most people will spend the vast majority of their time, there are a couple of other options, being the creator club mode, which allows you to overwrite an existing team with one of your own, adding players to create a dream team, and there is also a challenge mode which gives you a few scenarios to play through, such as attempting to go a season unbeaten or trying to guide your team through an injury crisis. It's disappointing though that this challenge mode is pretty much a copy and paste job, with every iteration of Touch on the Switch having the exact same challenges included. New for this year's release is the Media Hub, which basically brings all of your statistical analysis together in one place, allowing you to single out possible weaknesses in your play or focus on your upcoming opposition, for example. Feedback on decisions you make or what's being said in the media about your team or individual players is now much quicker, allowing you to see the impact this has on morale straight away. These aren't a huge improvement, and personally I would have liked to have seen them refine some of the features introduced over the last couple of years, such as the Club Vision, which still feels very undercooked and quite a way off its potential. A big step forward though for the Touch version is the increase of the number of playable nations you can have in a single save. This now stands at 5 as opposed to the previous 3, and while still way off the main series, it does begin to open up the possibility of taking on a proper journeyman save on a handheld device, and makes a big difference to the longevity of particular playthroughs. Obviously, the more nations you choose and the more leagues you have as playable within these nations, the slower the game runs, but this is to be expected. The main part that is stripped away from the Touch series compared to the main game is the level of interaction you have with players, the board, or the media, but again, I've always felt this part was incredibly repetitive and I don't really miss it here. Gameplay still delivers that classic Football Manager experience, albeit with the fat trimmed down for a portable device. It scores 17 out of 20. New features are perhaps not as bountiful as in previous years, but the increase in the number of playable nations offered in one playthrough is a big plus, and it scores 15 out of 20. When it comes to controls, Football Manager 2022 Touch offers 3 main options. First off, you have a hybrid system of using the left stick and the D-pad. Basically, any info on any screen at any one time is divided up into segments, and these can be highlighted by moving the left stick over them. Once a segment is highlighted, you can then select specific pieces of information within it, be it player or team names or emails in your inbox, and you do this by moving up and down with the D-pad, or you can use the right stick when scrolling is an option. This method was introduced in last year's iteration and felt very half-baked in that game, and I'm pleased to say that it has definitely been improved for this year's entry, and whilst it does take some getting used to, it can work quite well after a period of acclimatisation. Instead of this, you can click the left stick in to be offered a cursor, which you can then use to navigate the screen with the left stick. This is the closest to the traditional mouse and keyboard controls you would be using in the full game on PC, and whilst it is perfectly serviceable, the movement speed is a bit sluggish and it can be a bit awkward to get the cursor directly over the icon you want at times. Finally, if playing in handheld mode, you have the titular touch controls. Now, I've played all 5 of the Football Manager games that are on the Switch going back to 2018, for many hours I might add, and I have to say it almost feels as if the touch controls get a little bit worse with every edition. They are fine for moving larger icons, switching players in and out on the tactics screen, or pressing the buttons to advance time, plus making quick subs and shouts in-game using the touchscreen is incredibly easy. However, at other times, such as trying to scroll down through your first 11 and subs on the tactics screen, or clicking on anything a little more intricate, it just becomes an exercise in frustration. As well as this, there are certain buttons that just wouldn't work with touch controls. I could not once get the mentality setting to change in-game this way. I found that using the cursor with the stick and the new hybrid system got the job done with touch controls for convenience when it was actually convenient to use them, but it does feel as if you are getting by, and 5 entries in, this should have been refined by now. Controls score a disappointing 12 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, there's been a bit of an overhaul with menus for this year's version. Whereas a lot of the additional information you might have wanted to know about a club, competition or player were found in sub-menus accessed via the ZL and ZR buttons before, a lot of this has now been shifted to tabs at the top of the screen for each respective page and can now be cycled through with L and R. This streamlines things a lot and negates some of the aforementioned awkwardness caused by the controls. For menu screens, things will look nice and clean, although some screens do perhaps look a bit cluttered at times when a lot of information is needed, but it is hard to see how they could have improved this, to be fair. The match engine has also received a bit of a clean up. It promises that you'll be able to see the formation and tactical nuances as you play, such as more aggressive pressing or individual skills by players, and whilst I didn't necessarily notice this to a large extent, it did seem smoother than previous entries. Audio wise, there is no music, as is always the case with this series, and apart from the clicking of the buttons, the only sound you will hear are the roars from the crowd on match days. These do the job in a fairly minimalistic way. Visuals are basic, but the quality of life tweaks to sub-screen information is definitely welcome, and visuals and audio get a combined 16 out of 20. Football Manager 22 Touch costs £29.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. Now, it is only fair to say that in terms of potential hours of playtime you could spend on this game, it could easily stretch into the hundreds, if not thousands. The increase in the number of nations that you can have running at once only assists with this, even if it doesn't match the main game, but the convenience of having this in handheld and being able to play a match or two whilst waiting for a bus or being on your lunch break at work is a major draw. It's going to lose points here though for the touch controls, which just temper the urge to play it as much to a small degree, but value still gets 18 out of 20. To conclude, Football Manager 22 Touch offers much the same experience as last year's entry. The improvements made to that version, such as the new UI for example, are still here, and the controller functionality has definitely been improved for this year's game. Add to this a few new features and the increase in playable nations, and football fans can expect to plough just as many hours into the game once again, with the added convenience that a handheld device brings. It is very disappointing though that after 5 Switch entries they still cannot seem to get the actual touch controls down pat, and this has to be resolved for next year's entry, otherwise we risk entering the realm of diminishing returns as the series goes on. If you are willing to overlook these small gripes though, then a fledgling managerial career awaits. Football Manager 2022 Touch gets a SwitchUp score of 78%. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.